The name Santiago López, also known as El Pozolero, is synonymous with terror and violence in Mexico. This infamous drug lord gained notoriety for his ruthless methods of disposing of his enemies by dissolving their bodies in acid. His reign of terror left a deadly legacy that still haunts the country to this day. In this video, we will delve into the impact of El Pozolero on Mexico's crime history and how his actions have shaped the country's current state of affairs. From his rise to power to his eventual downfall, this is the story of Santiago López, El Pozolero. Unveiling the shadows. Who is Santiago López, El Pozolero? Santiago López, also known as El Pozolero, was a man shrouded in mystery and terror. Born and raised in Mexico, he would go on to become one of the most notorious drug lords the country has ever seen. How did this man rise to power and become synonymous with violence and fear? Let's dive into the shadows and uncover the story of Santiago López, El Pozolero. From an early age, Santiago López showed signs of being destined for a life of crime. Growing up in a poverty-stricken neighborhood, he quickly realized that the drug trade offered a way out of his circumstances. With his charismatic personality and street smarts, he rose through the ranks, eventually becoming the leader of his own drug cartel. But it was not just his criminal enterprise that earned him his infamous nickname. Santiago López's true legacy lies in his brutal methods of disposing of his enemies. He perfected the art of using acid to dissolve the bodies of those who crossed him. This method not only eliminated any trace of evidence, but also served as a warning to others who dared to oppose him. How a drug kingpin turned Mexico's trafficking crisis into a billion-dollar business is a tale that showcases the ruthless ambition and cunning of Santiago López. He was able to exploit the weaknesses of the Mexican government and exploit the vulnerabilities of its law enforcement agencies. With a vast network of corrupt officials and ruthless henchmen at his disposal, he was able to expand his empire and cement his reign of terror. Stewing in fear. The terrifying actions and methods of El Pozolero. Santiago López, also known as El Pozolero, instilled fear in the hearts of all who crossed his path. His actions were nothing short of terrifying, as he utilized ruthless methods to maintain his power and instill fear in his enemies. This section will delve into the dark and haunting actions of El Pozolero, giving you a glimpse into the chilling world he created. One of the most horrifying aspects of El Pozolero's reign was his method of disposing of his enemies. As mentioned before, he became notorious for dissolving the bodies of those who dared to oppose him in acid. This brutal and efficient method not only eliminated any evidence, but also sent a clear message to anyone who even considered going against him. The mere mention of his name struck terror into the hearts of those who knew the gruesome fate that awaited them if they crossed paths with El Pozolero. But his actions didn't stop at his method of disposal. Santiago López was also responsible for orchestrating numerous acts of violence and terror. Kidnappings, torture, and killings were all part of his playbook, leaving a trail of bloodshed and suffering in his wake. Innocent lives were destroyed, and communities were gripped by fear as they witnessed the ruthlessness and power of this drug lord. Long-lasting effects. How El Pozolero transformed the Mexican crime scene. The reign of Santiago López, also known as El Pozolero, has had long-lasting effects on the Mexican crime scene. His ruthless actions and brutal methods of disposing of his enemies have left a haunting legacy that continues to shape the country's current state of affairs. One of the most significant impacts of El Pozolero's reign is the normalization of extreme violence and terror within the criminal underworld. His method of dissolving bodies in acid became a horrifying trademark of his power and instilled fear in the hearts of all who knew his name. This extreme level of violence set a precedent for other drug lords and criminal organizations who adopted similar methods to maintain control and intimidate their rivals. The culture of brutality and ruthlessness that El Pozolero perpetuated continues to be a prevalent aspect of Mexico's crime scene, with violence being used as a means of exerting power and maintaining dominance. Furthermore, El Pozolero's ability to exploit the weaknesses of the Mexican government and law enforcement agencies has had lasting effects on the country's fight against organized crime. The corruption that allowed him to establish a vast network of corrupt officials and henchmen still plagues Mexico's law enforcement agencies to this day. The infiltration of drug cartels into various levels of government and law enforcement has hindered the country's ability to effectively combat organized crime, leading to a sense of distrust and a lack of confidence in the justice system. A stain on history, remembering the victims of El Pozolero's reign. As we delve into the terrifying legacy of Santiago López, also known as El Pozolero, it is crucial that we take a moment to remember the victims who suffered at the hands of this infamous drug lord. Each victim has a story, a life cut short by violence and fear. They are the stain on Mexico's history that can never be erased. The victims of Santiago López's reign come from all walks of life. They are the innocent bystanders caught in the crossfire, the rivals who dared to challenge his power, and the loved ones left behind to mourn their untimely deaths. Their lives were cut short, their dreams shattered, and their families forever scared by the horrors unleashed by El Pozolero. These victims deserve to be remembered, to have their stories told, and their voices heard. We must not let their suffering be in vain. Their tragic fates serve as a reminder of the darkness that can consume a nation when power and corruption go unchecked. We must also acknowledge the countless individuals who have been impacted by El Pozolero's reign of terror. The communities torn apart, the neighborhoods living in fear, and the collective trauma that still lingers in the hearts and minds of the Mexican people. The legacy of Santiago López, El Pozolero, is not just a stain on history, but a painful reminder of the profound impact his actions have had on countless lives. As we remember the victims of El Pozolero's reign, we must also strive for justice and accountability. It is our responsibility to ensure that their stories are not forgotten, that their voices are heard, and that their lives are not reduced to mere statistics. We owe it to them to work towards a safer and more just society, where the horrors of Santiago López's reign are never repeated. In the next and final section, we will explore the aftermath of El Pozolero's downfall and uncover what happened to this infamous drug lord. Stay tuned as we conclude this haunting tale and reflect on the lasting impact of Santiago López, El Pozolero. Wrapping up the infamous tale, what happened to Santiago López, El Pozolero? After years of terrorizing Mexico, Santiago López, also known as El Pozolero, met his downfall in a dramatic and fitting fashion. The arrest of El Pozolero marked a significant victory in the country's ongoing battle against organized crime. In conclusion, the story of Santiago López, El Pozolero, is a haunting tale of violence, fear, and the enduring struggle for justice. His arrest and conviction marked a significant victory in Mexico's fight against organized crime, but the impact of his actions will continue to shape the country for years to come.